The library door swung open with more force than necessary, and I didn't need to look up from my chemistry textbook to know who it was. Kai Thornton's footsteps had a particular rhythm, confident, measured, purposeful. They stopped right in front of my usual corner table. Elliot. His voice was soft, but there was an edge to it that made my heart stutter. I pushed my black, framed glasses up my nose. A nervous habit I'd never been able to break, and finally met his eyes. Those impossibly green eyes that had been haunting me for the past 3 days. I am studying, I stammered, looking back down at my notes. If you are looking for Evan, he is probably... I am not looking for Evan. Kai pulled out the chair across from me and sat down, leaning forward with his elbows on the table. I am looking for the person who has been pretending to be him for the past week. The blood drained from my face. My mouth went dry. Of all the ways I'd imagined this conversation going, I'd never expected Kai to be so direct. I don't know what you are talking about, I whispered. But even I could hear how unconvincing I sounded. Kai reached across the table and gently took off my glasses, folding them carefully and setting them aside. Without them, his face was slightly blurred, but I could still see the intensity in his expression. The real Evan would never let me do that. He hates when people touch his glasses. His thumb brushed across my cheek, and I froze completely. The real Evan does blush when I get close to him. The real Evan does listen to me talk about student council budgets for 45 minutes without checking his phone once. And the real Evan definitely doesn't go to the library voluntarily. Kai, my voice cracked. When did he leave, Elliot? When did your brother ask you to pretend to be him? The gentleness in his voice broke something inside me. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. A week ago, there was a family emergency with our aunt in Portland. He didn't want you to worry, and he thought it would just be a few days, so you agreed to pretend to be him. It wasn't a question. I am sorry, I whispered, reaching for my glasses with shaking hands. Kai caught my wrist, not hard, but firm enough to stop me. I know it was wrong. I know I should have just told you the truth from the beginning. But Evan was so worried, and he begged me, and I've never been able to say no to him. And Elliot. Kai's other hand came up to cup my chin, tilting my face up to meet his gaze. Stop apologizing. But I lied to you for a whole week. You did, he agreed, and there was something in his expression I could quite read, and I've spent this entire week falling in love with you. The world seemed to stop spinning. I stared at him, certain I misheard. What? I started suspecting on the second day, Kai continued, his thumb tracing small circles on my wrist. You were too nervous, too careful. But I didn't say anything because I wanted to be sure. And the more time I spent with you, the more I realized. He paused, taking a deep breath. Elliot, this past week with you has been different, better. You actually listen when I talk about things I care about. You remember the small details. When I mentioned I was stressed about the winter formal budget, you spent an entire lunch period helping me create a spreadsheet. The real Evan would have just nodded and changed the subject to basketball. That is because Evan and I are different people, I said weakly. You are dating him, not me, am I? Kai's smile was sad. Because I think I'm vetting the idea of Evan, the perfect popular athlete who looks good on my arm and makes sense for someone like me. But you, Elliot. His hand moved from my chin to brush a strand of brown hair from my forehead. You make me feel something real. I pulled my hand away, standing up so abruptly that my chair scraped loudly against the library floor. Several people looked over, and I felt my face burning. This is crazy. You can just. Evan is coming back tomorrow. This whole thing ends tomorrow. Does it have to? Kai stood as well, walking around the table to stand in front of me. Elliot, number. I grabbed my books, clutching them against my chest like a shield. You are confused. This week it was fake. I was pretending to be someone I am not. Once Evan comes back, everything will go back to normal. What if I don't want normal? Kai asked quietly. What if I want you? I could breathe. The library felt too small, too warm. I have to go. I practically ran out of the library, leaving Kai standing alone among the bookshelves. It had started so simply. 7 days ago, Evan had burst into our shared bedroom at midnight, which wasn't unusual. What was unusual was the panic on his face. A lie. I need your help. ID looked up from my book, taking in his disheveled appearance. What happened? Aunt Marie had a stroke. Mom and Dad are already on their way to Portland, but they want me to come too. She is asking for me specifically. My stomach had dropped. Aunt Marie was our mother's sister, the one who helped raise us when our parents were working double shifts. Of course, you should go. When is your flight? Tomorrow morning. But that is the problem. Evan had run his hands through his hair, a gesture of stress we shared despite our different personalities. I'll be gone for at least a week, maybe more. And Kai, we've been having some issues lately. He has been stressed about student council. And I've been preoccupied with basketball playoffs. If I just disappear for a week without explanation. So tell him the truth, ID said, confused about why this was even a dilemma. I can, I'll want to come with me. Or I'll worry himself sick. Or Evan had sat down on the edge of my bed, looking at me with desperate eyes. Eli, you know how he gets. I'll try to fix everything and make it better. And I need to focus on Aunt Marie right now. I can, deal with Kai's intensity on top of everything else. What are you asking me to do, Evan? Pretend to be me? Just for a week. You are the only one who can pull it off. We, re-identical, and you've always been good at observing people. You could. Absolutely not. ID stood up, crossing my arms. That is insane. Kai is your boyfriend. I am not going to. Please, Elliot. Evan had grabbed my hands. I know it is a lot to ask, but I am desperate. You just need to show up to a few student council meetings, sit with him at lunch, maybe text him a few times a day. You don't have to do anything intimate. Kai and I aren't really at that stage yet anyway. Evan, I'll owe you forever. I'll do all your chores for a month, 2 months. I'll finally introduce you to Marcus, his cute friend who works at the bookstore. Whatever you want, Eli, please. Looking back, I should have said no. I should have insisted that honesty was the only real option. But Evan was my brother, my twin, and despite our differences, I'd never been able to refuse him when he really needed me. Fine, I sighed, but only for a week, and you owe me so much more than chores. Evan had hugged me so tightly, I could barely breathe. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I knew I could count on you, little bro. I am only younger by 4 minutes. Still counts. The first day had been terrifying. I stood in front of the mirror that morning, wearing Evan's clothes, a fitted basketball jersey, and jeans that sat lower on my hips than I was comfortable with. Practiced his confident smile, his casual walk, the way he tilted his head when he was listening to someone talk. You can do this? D told my reflection. It is just acting. V read enough books about different personalities. Just channel Evan's energy. School had been a blur of anxiety. ID avoided Kai as much as possible, claiming I had an early morning practice and needed to skip our usual coffee meetup. ID sat with Evan's friends at lunch, laughing at their jokes and pretending to care about last night's game. Every moment felt like walking on a tightrope. One wrong move, and everything would come crashing down. But then Kai had found me after school. Hey, stranger. He cornered me by my locker, looking unfairly perfect in his student council blazer. You've been avoiding me all day. No, I haven't. ID lied, keeping my voice pitched slightly deeper, the way Evan's was. Just busy with stuff. Kai had studied my face with an intensity that made me want to disappear. Are you okay? You seem different. I am fine. ID forced Evan's easy smile. Just tired, late practice last night. Kai hadn't. Looked convinced. But he let it go. Well, I have a student council meeting in 20 minutes, but I wanted to see you first. We barely talked yesterday. Guilt had twisted in my stomach. Sorry, things have just been hectic, I know. Kai had reached out to fix my collar, and I defrozen at the casual intimacy of the gesture. Evan probably would have reacted. For him, Kai's touch was normal, expected. But for me, it was electric and overwhelming. The winter formal is in 3 weeks, and the committee is being impossible about the venue decorations. That sounds stressful, ID managed, trying to remember how Avon usually responded to Kai. Student council talk, usually with half-hearted attention and a quick change of subject. But I am sure all figure it out. You always do. D started to walk away, but Kai had caught my arm. Evan, yeah, do you want to come to the meeting? You never usually do, but I could use the moral support. The old Elliot would have jumped at the chance to sit in on a student council meeting. I'd always been curious about how they worked, how decisions were made, how Kai managed to lead a group of strong personalities toward a common goal. But Evan found them boring. Evan would have made an excuse. I actually have to study. ID said, hating the disappointment that flickered across Kai's face. Chemistry test tomorrow. Since when do you study for tests? Kai had asked, a slight edge to his voice. ID frozen. Damn it, since I am barely passing, and coach said I need to keep my grades up or I am off the team. It was a reasonable lie. Kai had seemed to accept it, though his eyes had still held that searching quality that made me nervous. Okay, tomorrow then, we could grab dinner after your practice. Sure, sounds good. D escaped before I could make any more mistakes. But avoiding Kai had proven impossible. D texted me that night. Casual messages that Evan would have responded to with emojis and short phrases. D tried to match that energy. But somehow, my responses had come out longer, more thoughtful. When Kai had mentioned he was struggling with a difficult decision about allocating funds between the drama department and the debate team, I found myself typing out a whole paragraph about the importance of supporting both arts and academics, suggesting a compromise that could satisfy both groups. Even would have just sent back, sounds complicated, bro. I'll figure it out, Sardi. I stared at my carefully constructed message, then deleted it and replaced it with something more Avon. But it had felt wrong, dismissive. In the end, I sent the longer message anyway. Kai had called me immediately. Are you sure you are okay? His voice had been soft with concern. This doesn't sound like you. I am fine, I insisted, my heart racing. Why wouldn't I be? I don't know. You just seem thoughtful tonight, introspective. It is nice, but unexpected. Maybe I am growing as a person, I joked, weakly. Kai had laughed, and the sound had made something warm bloom in my chest. I like it. We should talk like this more often. We stayed on the phone for over an hour, discussing everything from student council politics to our favorite books. I had to catch myself several times, almost mentioning authors and titles that Elliot loved but Evan had never read. By the time we hung up, I'd been exhausted from the mental gymnastics of being someone else. But I'd also been smiling. The second day, I'd made a critical error. Kai had suggested we have lunch together, away from our usual crowded table. We found a quiet spot in the courtyard, and he immediately launched into a detailed explanation of his plans for the winter formal. The old Evan would have been checking his phone, maybe making non-committal sounds of agreement. But I found myself genuinely interested. I asked questions about the budget, the timeline, the challenges he was facing with the venue. I even pulled out a notebook, Evan's notebook, which had been blank, and started jotting down ideas. Wait, Kai had stopped mid-sentence, staring at me. Are you taking notes? I looked down at the notebook, realizing my mistake too late. Yeah. I thought it might help you organize your thoughts. Evan, you've never taken notes on anything in your life except basketball plays. Maybe I am turning over a new leaf, I said, trying to joke my way out of it. But Kai had reached across the table and taken the notebook from my hands. He studied my handwriting, neater than Evan's, more organized. This isn't to your handwriting. Panic had flooded through me. Sure it is. No, it is not. Your handwriting is messier, more rushed. Kai. Eyes had narrowed. What is going on, Evan? Nothing. I am just trying to be more supportive of the things you care about. By pretending to be someone you are not. The irony of that statement had nearly made me laugh hysterically. I am not pretending. I am just making an effort. Kai had studied me for a long moment, and I'd been certain he was about to call me out. But then he smiled. A small, genuine smile that had made my breath catch. I appreciate it, really. It is nice to feel like you are actually interested in my life. Guilt had crashed over me in waves, because I was interested, desperately, genuinely interested in every word that came out of Kai's mouth. But I wasn't Evan, I was Elliot, and this was all a lie. Tell me more about the decorations, I said, desperate to change the subject. You mentioned fairy lights? And Kai had lit up, launching into an enthusiastic explanation of his vision for transforming the gym into a winter wonderland. I listened to every word, storing away each detail, and tried not to think about how much I was enjoying this. By the third day, I started to forget I was supposed to be Evan. We met in the library, my suggestion, which should have been another red flag, but Kai had seemed pleased. He spread out his student council paperwork across the table, and I helped him sort through budget proposals and event schedules. You know, you are really good at this, Kai had said at one point, looking at the color-coded spreadsheet I created. Have you ever thought about joining student council? I frozen, me. Number that is not really my thing. Why not? You are organized, thoughtful, good with numbers. You, be an asset. Because I am not actually Evan, I thought. Because Evan would rather eat glass than sit through a student council meeting. Because this whole thing is a lie and I am falling deeper into it every day. I am too busy with basketball, ID said instead. Kai had looked like he wanted to argue, but he let it drop. Instead, he reached across the table and laced his fingers through mine. Thank you for this, for being here with me. I know student council stuff isn't too exciting, but it means a lot that you are making time for it. His hand had been warm, slightly calloused from years of piano lessons. ID looked down at our intertwined fingers and felt something crack open inside my chest. It is exciting, ID whispered. When you talk about it, I mean, you make it sound important, like you are really making a difference. Kai, his eyes had softened. Evan, and then he, leaned across the table, clearly intending to kiss me. I panicked and pulled away, knocking over his coffee in the process. Sorry, I am not feeling well. I should go. I practically run from the library, leaving Kai sitting alone with coffee, spreading across his carefully organized papers. He texted me later that night. Are you avoiding kissing me? ID stared at the message for 10 minutes before responding. No, I am just stressed about basketball stuff. Evan, we've been dating for 3 months. We've barely done more than hold hands. If you are not ready for physical intimacy, that is okay, but you need to talk to me about it. My hands had been shaking as I typed. I am sorry, I don't mean to make you feel rejected. I just need time. I can give you time. I just need to know what you are thinking. What I was thinking was that kissing Kai, while pretending to be my brother, would be a betrayal of everyone involved. What I was thinking was that I wanted to kiss Kai so badly, it hurt. What I was thinking was that I was in way over my head. I am thinking that you are too good for me. ID written. And it was the first honest thing ID said all week. Kai had called immediately, but I hadn't answered. ID curled up in Evan's bed, surrounded by basketball trophies and athletic awards that would never be mine, and tried not to cry the 4th day. Kai had been waiting outside my first period class. We need to talk, he said, and his expression had been serious enough that I followed him without argument. He led me to an empty classroom, closing the door behind us. I know something is wrong, and I know you are not telling me the truth about what it is. Kai, is it me? His voice had been quiet, vulnerable. Did I do something wrong? Are you losing interest? No, the word had burst out of me with more force than I. Intended. God, no, you are. You are perfect. You are everything anyone could want. Then what is it? Kai had stepped closer, reaching up to cup my face in his hands. Talk to me, Evan, please. I looked into his green eyes and felt the truth clawing at my throat. I wanted so badly to tell him everything. That I was Evan. That I'd been lying to him all week. That every moment we spent together had been built on deception. But I also wanted to protect him, to protect this fragile thing growing between us, even though I'd known it could last. I am just going through some stuff. I said finally. Personal stuff. It has nothing to do with you. Then, let me help you through it. That is what boyfriends do. Boyfriends. The word had felt like a knife twisting in my gut because Kai wasn't my boyfriend. He was Evan's boyfriend, and I was just a stand-in, a temporary replacement, a lie wearing my brother's face. I need to handle this on my own, I whispered. Kai had looked hurt, but he nodded and stepped back. Okay, but Evan, whatever is going on, I am here. When you are ready to talk, I am here. ID wanted to kiss him so badly in that moment. Instead, ID just nodded and left. The fifth day had been the beginning of the end. I'd been avoiding Kai again, but he tracked me down in the library after school. My library, Elliot's library. The one place I thought I could be myself for a few minutes. Found you? he said, sliding into the chair across from me. I looked up from my calculus homework. Another mistake, because Evan didn't take calculus, and felt my stomach drop. Hey, Kai had stared at the textbook in front of me. Since when do you take advanced calculus? I switched into it this semester. Wanted to challenge myself. Really? Because I am pretty sure I saw the roster for that class, and Evan Reed wasn't on it. His eyes had moved to my face, studying me with an intensity that made me want to disappear. But Elliot Reed was. The world had seemed to stop. I don't know what you are talking about. I tried, but my voice had been shaking. Kai had reached across the table and gently removed my glasses. The same gesture he use a few days later when he confront me for real. Evan doesn't wear glasses, but Elliot does. I felt tears prick at the corners of my eyes. Kai, when did he leave, Elliot? When did Evan ask you to pretend to be him? And that is when I should have told him everything. But I'd been a coward. I am not Elliot, I'd insisted, even though we both knew it was a lie. I am just wearing his glasses because I forgot mine at home. Kai had looked at me for a long moment, then stood up. Okay, if that is how you want to play this, fine. But Elliot, he leaned down, his lips close to my ear. I know it is you, and I am going to prove it. The sixth day, Kai had started testing me. He shown up at my locker in the morning with coffee, but instead of Evan's usual black coffee with extra sugar, it was a caramel latte with extra foam. Elliot's favorite, which I mentioned once in passing to Evan months ago. Thought you might want to try something different, Kai had said, watching my reaction carefully. I'd taken the cup automatically, the familiar smell making me smile before I could stop myself. Thanks. You like it? Yeah, it is. I'd caught myself. Actually, I prefer my usual. Can we swap? There is no usual coffee, Kai had said softly. I made that up to see what you say. He caught me. At lunch, he suggested we go to the new bookstore that had opened downtown. I know you are not usually into reading, but I thought we could browse together. The bookstore, Elliot's dream. I wanted to go so badly. I could taste it. I have practice. I lied. Practice does. Start for another 3 hours. I need to warm up. Evan. Kai had taken my hand. Just admit it. You want to go to the bookstore. I can see it in your eyes. I don't. Stop lying to me. His voice had been gentle but firm. Please, just stop. I pulled my hand away and left without another word. The seventh day, yesterday, Kai had finally cornered me completely. He asked me to meet him in the student council room after school. I thought about not showing up, but that would have been even more suspicious. When I arrived, he been sitting at the conference table, surrounded by photographs. Come look at these, he said. I approached cautiously, and my heart had stopped when I seen what they were. Pictures of Evan and Kai together over the past 3 months. Evan with his arms slung casually around Kai, shoulders. Evan barely paying attention while Kai talked. Evan checking his phone during what was clearly meant to be a romantic dinner. And then, scattered among them, photos from this past week. Me listening intently to Kai during a student council meeting. Me laughing at something he said in the courtyard. Me with my head bent, close to his as we worked on the winter formal budget. See the difference? Kai had asked quietly. In every photo from before this week, Evan is looking at the camera, or at his phone, or at something else. But in every photo from this week, he pointed to my face in the images. You are looking at me. I felt the tears been holding back all week finally spill over. Kai, it is okay, he said, standing up and crossing to where I stood. I know, Elliot, I've known since the second day, maybe even the first. Then why didn't you say anything? Because I wanted to be sure, and because he reached up to brush away my tears with his thumb. I wanted to spend time with you, the real you, not the version of you that is trying to be Evan. But I've been lying to you all week. Been protecting your brother. That is different. Kai had smiled sadly. And honestly, this past week with you has been the best week I've had in months. Maybe since Evan and I started dating. You can mean that. Can T.I.? Kai had taken both of my hands in his. Elliot, Evan is charming and fun and popular. He is everything a student council president should date. But he doesn't really see me. He doesn't care about the things I care about. He is with me because it makes sense. Because we look good together. He cares about you, I protested, weakly. Maybe, but not the way I want to be cared about. Not the way you cared about me this week. Kai had pulled me closer. You listen when I talk. You remember details. You helped me create a budget spreadsheet at midnight over text because you could tell I was stressed. When was the last time Evan did something like that? That is not fair. Evan is. Evan is your brother, and you love him. I get that. But Elliot, Kai had cupped my face in his hands. I think I am falling in love with you. And that is when I run. That is when I fled to the library and tried to pretend that none of this was happening. Now, sitting alone at my usual table, after Kai had dropped his bombshell, and I fled, I could. Stop shaking. Kai loved me, not Evan, me, Elliot, the quiet, boring twin who spent his time in libraries instead of on basketball courts. But it didn't matter. It could matter. Because Evan was coming back tomorrow, and this whole charade would be over. My phone buzzed. A text from Evan. Flight lands at 3 p.m. tomorrow. Aunt Marie is doing better. Thanks for covering for me, little bro. I owe you everything. I stared at the message until the screen blurred. Tomorrow, everything would go back to normal. Evan would return to school, and to Kai, I would go back to being invisible. This week would become a memory, a strange, wonderful, terrible memory of being someone else. Another text, this time from Kai. I am sorry for ambushing you, but I meant what I said. I'll wait for you by the front entrance tomorrow morning. Please, Don, to avoid me. I didn't respond to either message. That night, I could sleep. I lay in Evan's bed. I'd been sleeping there all week to maintain the illusion, and stared at the ceiling. Part of me wanted to tell Kai the truth, to let him know that Evan was coming back, and this whole thing had an expiration date. But another part of me wanted to hold on to this fantasy for just a little bit longer. At 2 a.m., I gave up on sleep and went down to the kitchen. I was surprised to find my mother there, sitting at the table with a cup of tea. Elliot? She looked up in surprise. What are you doing up? I froze, realizing I was still wearing Evan's clothes. still playing the part. I could sleep. My mother studied me for a moment, then patted the chair next to her. Sit. I sat. Your brother called me this afternoon, she said carefully. He told me about the arrangement you two made. My stomach dropped. Mom, I am sorry. I know it was wrong too. He also said you been miserable all week. She reached over and took my hand. Baby, why did you agree to this if you knew it would be hard on you? Because he is my brother. He needed my help. And because UV always had trouble saying no to him, it wasn't a question. Elliot, you have to stop living in your brother as shadow. You are your own person with your own life and your own feelings. I know that, do you? She squeezed my hand. Because from where I am sitting, it seems like you, Vess, spent this whole week pretending to be someone you are not, when the person you actually are is pretty wonderful. Tears started falling before I could stop them. I messed everything up, Mom. Kai, Evan, his boyfriend. He figured out it was me, and he said he has feelings for me. But that is crazy, right? He is with Evan. He can he? My mother pulled me into a hug. Sweetheart, feelings don't to follow logic. They just are. And if this boy has developed feelings for you, that is not something you can control. But Evan will be fine. Your brother is more resilient than you give him credit for. She pulled back to look at me. The question is, do you have feelings for Kai? I thought about the past week, the way my heart had raced every time Kai smiled at me, the way I memorized every detail he shared about his life, the way I felt seen and valued in a way I never had before. Yes, I whispered. God, yes. But it does matter. He is Evan's boyfriend, and Evan is my brother, and I can You can control how you feel, Elliot. None of us can. What you can control is what you do about it. She stood up, kissing the top of my head. Get some sleep. Tomorrow is going to be a big day. I didn't sleep. Instead, I spent the rest of the night trying to figure out what I was going to say to Kai, to Evan, to myself. By the time morning came, I made a decision. I would tell Kai the truth, that Evan was coming back today, that this week had been a lie, that whatever he thought he felt for me was just a confused response to me being different from Evan. And then I would step back and let things return to normal. I dressed in my own clothes for the first time in a week. Soft jeans, a worn sweater, my comfortable sneakers. I put on my glasses and looked at myself in the mirror. Elliot Reed, not Evan Reed. It felt like coming home after a long journey. When I arrived at school, Kai was waiting by the front entrance, just as he promised. He was holding 2 cups of coffee. Caramel latte with extra foam, he said, holding one out to me. Your actual favorite. I took the cup, my hands trembling slightly. Kai, we need to talk. I know, come on. He led me to the same empty classroom we used before. Once inside, he turned to face me. Evan coming back today. Isn't he? I nodded, not trusting my voice. I figured. UV had that look in your eyes, like you are preparing to say goodbye. Kai set down his coffee and took both of my hands. Before you do, though, I need to say something. Kai, please, let me finish. He took a deep breath. This past week, I've gotten to know you, Elliot. The real you. And I've realized that what I had with Evan was real. It was comfortable and easy and looked good on paper. But it wasn't real. Not like this. You barely know me, I protested. You know Evan. I was just pretending. You were pretending to be Evan. But you could hide who you really are. You are kind and thoughtful and passionate about things. You care about people deeply. You listen. You see me, Elliot? Really see me? Evan never did. Tears were streaming down my face now. But he is your boyfriend. He is my brother. This is wrong. Is it? Kai reached up to wipe away my tears. Elliot, I am going to break up with Evan today. Not because of you, or not only because of you, but because I've realized that we re not right for each other. We never were. You can, T, do that. You can, T, throw away a 3-month relationship because of one weird week where you thought you were getting a different version of your boyfriend. I am not throwing it away. I am being honest about the fact that it wasn't, T, working. Kai, his voice was firm. Evan and I have been coasting for weeks. We barely talk anymore. When we do, it is superficial. He has been pulling away for a while now, and I've been pretending not to notice because breaking up seemed like failure. Kai, I am not asking you to date me right now, he continued. I know this is complicated and messy, and there are a lot of feelings involved. But I am asking you to give me a chance. After I talk to Evan, after everything settles down, I want to take you on a real date. As Elliot, not as Evan substitute. I wanted to say yes so badly, it hurt, but I couldn't stop thinking about Evan, about how this would hurt him. I need to talk to my brother first, I said finally. I need to explain what happened and make sure he is okay with this. Kai nodded. That is fair, but Elliot, I am going to wait for you, however long it takes. Evan's flight landed at 3 p.m., and I was waiting at the airport when he came through the gate. He looked tired, but relieved, and he pulled me into a hug immediately. Thank you so much, Eli. I don't know what I would have done without you. How is Aunt Marie? I asked, postponing the inevitable conversation. Much better. She is going to make a full recovery. Evan pulled back to look at me. How was everything here? Did Kai suspect anything? We need to talk. Let's go somewhere private. We ended up at our favorite coffee shop, sitting in a corner booth. I told him everything about pretending to be him, about how Kai had figured it out, about the conversations we had, and the way I started to feel. And now, Kai says he has feelings for me. I finished. He says he is going to break up with you. I am so sorry, Evan. I never meant for any of this to happen. I braced myself for anger, for hurt, for accusations, but Evan just laughed. Oh, thank God, he said, slumping back in his seat. I blinked. What? A lie. Kai and I have been dying a slow death for weeks, maybe longer. Evan ran his hands through his hair. I've been trying to figure out how to break up with him without it being this whole dramatic thing. He is a great guy, but we just not compatible. I am too much of a jock. He is too much of an intellectual. He wants to have deep conversations, and I just want to watch the game. It has been exhausting. But you asked me to pretend to be you so he wouldn't worry. I asked you to pretend to be me because I am a coward who didn't want to deal with an emotional conversation before going to see Aunt Marie, Evan corrected. I should have just broken up with him weeks ago. I stared at my brother, trying to process this. So you are not mad? Mad? A lie? You did me a favor. If Kai realizes we're not right for each other, that makes this whole thing easier. He reached across the table and took my hand. And if he has feelings for you, little bro, you should go for it. But what about you? What about the fact that I was pretending to be you? Isn't that weird? It is definitely weird, Evan admitted. But also kind of perfect. You and Kai make way more sense than Kai and I ever did. You are both smart and thoughtful, and way too serious about student council type stuff. He grinned. Plus, you've had a crush on him since the day he and I started dating. My face burned. I have not. Elliot Reed, you are the worst liar in the world. I've seen the way you look at him when you think no one is watching. Evan squeezed my hand. You deserve to be happy. And if Kai makes you happy, then you have my blessing. Just maybe wait a few days before you start dating. Yeah, let me officially break up with him first. Are you sure about this? Completely. Actually, Evan pulled out his phone. I'm going to text him right now and ask to meet up tomorrow. Get this over with, Evan. Relax, Eli. This is a good thing. For all of us. He started typing on his phone, then looked up at me with a mischievous grin. Besides, do you really think I want to keep dating a guy who is in love with my brother? That would be awkward as hell. Despite everything, I laughed. The next day, Evan and Kai met during lunch. Evan had asked me to stay away, to let them have their conversation in private, so I hidden in the library, my real sanctuary, and tried to focus on homework. It didn't work. I kept checking my phone, waiting for... I did. Do you know what? A text from Evan saying it was done. A message from Kai saying he changed his mind. Instead, Kai found me in person. I looked up from my calculus textbook to find him standing in front of my table, still wearing his student council blazer, looking tired, but somehow lighter. Can I sit? He asked. I nodded, not trusting my voice. Kai sat down across from me and took a deep breath. Evan and I broke up. I know, he texted me. My hands were shaking. How are you feeling? Relieved, actually. We both are. It was the most amicable breakup I've ever had. Kai reached across the table and took my hand. He told me to go talk to you. Said something about not making you wait any longer. Kai, I know this is complicated. I know there is going to be people who think it is weird that I am interested in my boyfriend, his twin brother. I know we need to take things slow and figure out who we are together without all the pretending. He squeezed my hand. But Elliot, I meant what I said. I want to try this. With you. The real you. I looked at our joined hands. Then, up at his face. Those green eyes that had haunted me all week were looking at me with an openness that made my heart ache. I am not like Evan, I said quietly. I am not outgoing or popular or athletic. I like spending Friday nights reading in the library. I get anxious in crowds. I am terrible at small talk. I know, Kai interrupted gently. I know exactly who you are, Elliot, and that is who I want. But what if I am boring? What if after a few weeks you realize you miss being with someone exciting like Evan? Kai stood up and walked around the table to sit next to me instead of across from me. He took both of my hands and turned to face me fully. Elliot Reed, you are many things, but boring is not one of them. You are brilliant and passionate and thoughtful. You make me think about things in ways I never have before. When I am with you, I feel like I can be my whole self, not just the perfect student council president. Really? Really? He reached up to cup my face in his hands. So what do you say? Can I take you on a real date? As yourself this time? I thought about all the reasons I should say no, about how complicated this was, how many people would have opinions about it, about how scary it was to step out of my brother, as shadow and into the spotlight. But I also thought about how Kai made me feel, how he listened to me, how he saw me, how for 1 week I felt like the main character in my own life instead of a supporting player in Evan S. Yes, I whispered. Yes, I like that. Kai' smile was brilliant and genuine, and when he leaned in to kiss me, I didn't pull away this time. His lips were soft against mine, gentle and questioning. I kissed him back, pouring a week's worth of longing and fear and hope into it. When we finally pulled apart, I was breathless and blushing, and Kai was looking at me like I was something precious. "Friday night?" he asked. I'll pick you up at 7. Friday night, I agreed. But fair warning, I am probably going to be incredibly awkward. I am counting on it. Kai stood up, pressing one more quick kiss to my forehead. I should get back to student council. But Elliot, I am really glad your brother asked you to pretend to be him, even if the circumstances were weird. I watched him leave, my heart still racing, and realized I was smiling so hard, my cheeks hurt. My phone buzzed with a text from Evan. "So?" I typed back. "We re-going on a date Friday." His response was immediate. "Finally, I expect full details. Also, you are welcome." "For what?" "For being such a terrible boyfriend that Kai fell for you instead. You know I planned this whole thing, right?" "You did not." "Okay, fine. I didn't. But I am taking credit anyway. That is what big brothers do. You are only older by 4 minutes. Still counts. Have fun on your date, little bro. And Eli, I am happy for you." I set down my phone and looked around the library. My library, and felt something settle inside me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to be anyone but myself. And it felt perfect. Friday arrived, both too quickly and not quickly enough. I changed outfits 4 times before settling on dark jeans and a soft blue sweater that Evan insisted brought out my eyes. I was a nervous wreck by the time Kai knocked on our door at exactly 7. My mom answered, because of course she did. "Kai, come in, come in." Elliot S. just finishing up. "Mom," I called from upstairs, mortified. "I am ready, we can go." I came downstairs to find Kai chatting easily with my mother about the winter formal plans. He was wearing casual clothes instead of his usual blazer, dark jeans and a green Henley that made his eyes look even more striking. "You look great," he said when he saw me, and I felt my face heat up. "So do you." Evan appeared from the living room, munching on an apple. "You kids have fun." "Don, to do anything I would to do." "That leaves us a lot of options," Kai said dryly, and Evan laughed. "Fair point. Okay. Don, to do anything. Elliot wouldn't to do." "That leaves us almost no options," I muttered, and Kai laughed. "I'll find a middle ground," he promised, taking my hand. My mom insisted on taking pictures, which was embarrassing but also kind of sweet. Evan made bunny ears behind us in half of them, and Kai pulled me close for the others, his arm around my waist. Finally, we escaped to his car. "Sorry about that," I said, as we pulled away from the house. "My family is a lot." "Your family is great," Kai corrected. "Your mom is sweet, and Evan is, well, he is Evan. He is ridiculous. He is a good brother. He really cares about you." I thought about that. About how Evan had not only given his blessing, but had actively encouraged this. "Yeah, he is." Kai drove us to the bookstore. He mentioned during the week I was pretending to be Evan. It had a small cafe in the back, all warm lighting and comfortable chairs. I thought we could browse for a bit, then grab coffee and talk. Kai suggested, "Unless you'd rather do something else." "No, this is perfect." And it was. Being surrounded by books with Kai felt like a dream. I didn't to know. I had. We wandered through the aisles, pulling out books and reading passages to each other. Kai was drawn to the poetry section, while I gravitated toward science fiction and fantasy. We met in the middle at the classics, debating the merits of different authors. "They actually read all of these?" Kai asked. Gesturing to a shelf of Russian literature, most of them. I went through a phase sophomore year. I can. Imagine Evan sitting still long enough to read War and Peace. Evan can imagine it either. He keeps asking me how I don't get bored. I pulled out a worn copy of Anna Karenina. But I don't. I love getting lost in other worlds, other people, as stories. Kai took the book from my hands and set it aside, then pulled me close. I love that about you, the way you see depth and meaning in everything. You are going to make me blush in the middle of a bookstore. Good, he kissed my nose. You are cute when you blush. We eventually made our way to the cafe, where Kai ordered us both coffee and a slice of chocolate cake to share. We sat in a corner booth, and Kai pulled out a small notebook. What is that? I asked. My winter formal planning notebook. I wanted to show you something. He flipped it open to a page covered in neat handwriting and sketches. Remember when you helped me with the budget last week? When I was pretending to be Evan? Yeah. Well, I took all your suggestions and worked them into the final plan. Look, he showed me detailed drawings of the decorations, the layout, the schedule, the fairy lights you mentioned, the compromise between the drama and debate departments, even the idea about having a quiet corner for people who get overwhelmed by crowds. I stared at the notebook, touched beyond words. You actually listened to all of that. Of course I did. You have great ideas, Elliot. He reached across the table and took my hand. Actually, I wanted to ask you something. Would you consider joining the student council? We could really use someone with your organizational skills and creative thinking. Me? On student council? The idea was terrifying and thrilling at the same time. I am not really a public speaking person. You don't have to be. Not all council positions require presentations. We need people who work behind the scenes, who handle logistics and planning. Kai squeezed my hand, but no pressure. I just think you'd be really good at it. Can I think about it? Of course. We talked for hours about everything and nothing. Kai told me about his childhood, about the pressure he felt to be perfect, about his dreams of going to college and maybe becoming a teacher. I told him about growing up in Evan. Shadow, about finding solace in books, about my fear of never being enough. You are more than enough, Kai said firmly. Elliot, you have to stop comparing yourself to Evan. You are not him. You are you. And you are extraordinary. I don't feel extraordinary. I feel like the boring twin. Then let me tell you what I see. Kai leaned forward, his eyes intense. I see someone who is kind and thoughtful. Someone who remembers small details about the people they care about. Someone who helped a stressed out student council president create a budget spreadsheet at midnight because they could tell he needed it. Someone who reads Russian literature for fun and isn't too afraid to be themselves, even when it would be easier to blend in. Tears pricked at my eyes. Kai, I see someone extraordinary, Elliot. I just wish you could see it too. I wiped at my eyes, embarrassed by the emotion. You are going to make me cry in the middle of a coffee shop. Sorry. But Kai didn't he look sorry? He looked sorry. He looked soft and open, and like he meant every word he said. We stayed at the bookstore until they closed. Then Kai drove me home. He walked me to the door like a proper gentleman, and I felt like I was floating. I had a really good time tonight, I said, fumbling with my keys. Me too. Kai caught my hand before I could open the door. Can I see you tomorrow? We could study together, or just hang out, whatever you want. I like that. Good. He leaned in and kissed me, slow and sweet, when he pulled back. We were both smiling. Good night, Elliot. Good night, Kai. I watched him drive away before going inside, where I found Evan waiting on the couch. So, he turned off the television and gave me his full attention. How was it? It was perfect. I sat down next to him, still smiling. We went to the bookstore and talked for hours, and Evan, he really sees me. Not as your brother or as anyone else. Just me. I told you, Evan said, throwing an arm around my shoulders. You guys are perfect for each other. Way more perfect than Kai and I ever were. You are really okay with this. I am more than okay. I am relieved. Dating Kai was exhausting. He wanted to have deep conversations about poetry and social justice, and I just wanted to watch SportsCenter. Evan grinned. Besides, it is kind of cool. My little brother is dating the student council president. Very prestigious. I am not your little brother. 4 minutes, Eli. 4 very important minutes. I shoved him playfully, and he laughed. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Kai and I started dating officially. And while there were definitely some whispers and weird looks at school, most people were surprisingly supportive. It helped that Evan was vocal about his approval, telling anyone who asked that Kai and I were much better suited for each other. It was honestly getting embarrassing, Evan told Marcus, loud enough for half the cafeteria to hear. Kai would try to talk to me about Shakespeare, and I'd just stare at him blankly. Meanwhile, Elliot can quote entire soliloquies from memory. They made for each other. D turned bright red, but Kai had just smiled and kissed my cheek, unbothered by the attention. I did end up joining student council, taking on the role of event coordinator. It turned out I was really good at it, taking Kai's creative visions and turning them into actionable plans. We made a good team, balancing each other out. The winter formal was a massive success. The gym was transformed into a winter wonderland, complete with thousands of fairy lights, artificial snow, and a quiet corner with comfortable chairs for people who needed a break from the music. Kai gave a speech, thanking the committee for their hard work, and he specifically called out my contributions. None of this would have been possible without our amazing event coordinator, Elliot Reed, he said, gesturing to where I stood off to the side. He turned my scattered ideas into this beautiful reality. Wanted to disappear from embarrassment, but Evan had whistled loudly from the crowd, and everyone had clapped, and Kai had looked at me with so much pride and affection that I couldn't help but smile. Later, when we were dancing, slowly, because I was terrible at dancing, and Kai was patient, he pulled me close and whispered, "Thank you for everything. I didn't do that much. You did everything." He kissed my forehead. "You made this perfect. You make everything perfect." "That is not true. I mess things up all the time." "Maybe. But you also fix things. You see problems and you solve them. You see people and you really look at them." Kai had pulled back to look at me. "You saw me, Elliot. Really saw me. Not the perfect student council president. Not the guy who has everything together. Just me." "I like just you," I whispered. "I like just you too." We kissed in the middle of the dance floor, surrounded by fairy lights and artificial snow, and I felt like the main character in my own story for the first time in my life. It wasn't always perfect. Kai and I had our share of disagreements and misunderstandings. He sometimes pushed me to be more social than I was comfortable with, and I sometimes retreated into my books when things got too overwhelming. But we learned to communicate, to compromise, to see each other's perspectives. Evan remained our biggest supporter, often joking that he should get partial credit for our relationship. If I hadn't asked you to pretend to be me, none of this would have happened, he to say. If you hadn't been a terrible boyfriend, none of this would have happened. D counter. Exactly. I am a matchmaker. You should thank me. But underneath the teasing, there was genuine happiness. Evan started dating a guy from the basketball team a few months later, and the four of us would sometimes double date. It was strange and wonderful and completely perfect. One Saturday afternoon, about 6 months after everything had started, Kai and I were in the library. Our library. Working on college applications. Have you thought about where you want to apply? Kai asked, not looking up from his laptop. A few places. Nothing definite yet. I was being evasive, and he knew it, Elliot. I don't want to assume anything, I said carefully. About us, about the future. Kai closed his laptop and turned to face me. What do you mean? I mean, we'll be graduating soon. And then we'll go to college. Probably different colleges, and long distance is really hard. And I don't want you to feel like you have to. Elliot Reed, are you trying to break up with me preemptively? What? No, I just don't want to hold you back. Hold me back from what? Being without you. That sounds terrible. Kai took my hands. I love you. I want to figure out the future together, not apart. My heart stopped. You love me. Of course, I love you. I thought that was obvious. You? Van never said it before. Haven, T-I? Kai looked surprised, then sheepish. Sorry. I think I've been saying it in my head so often, I forgot to say it out loud. But yes, Elliot, I love you. I love your brilliant mind and your kind heart and the way you see the world. I love how you make me want to be better. I love that you help me realize that perfection isn't the goal, being authentic is. I was crying, which was embarrassing, but I couldn't help it. I love you too, so much it scares me sometimes. Don't to be scared. Kai wiped away my tears. We all figure it out. Together. Maybe we'll end up at the same college. Maybe we won. But I am not giving up on us, just because things might get complicated. You promise? I promise. We kissed there in the library, surrounded by books and afternoon sunlight. And I thought about how much had changed since that night, when Evan had asked me to pretend to be him. Thought I was doing my brother a favor. Thought it would just be a week of mild discomfort, and then everything would go back to normal. Instead, found myself. Found someone who saw me, really saw me, and loved what he found. Stepped out of my twin, shadow, and into the light. Thank you, I whispered against Kai. Slips. For what? For seeing me. For choosing me. Always, Kai promised. Always you, Elliot. And as we sat there in our library, our sanctuary, our beginning, I finally believed him.